thanks for hanging in there. If you're there, if you're still live joining us, Sajid, I know you were there. You were talking about Blinkist, which is another great app or software that lets you get snippets of books. The readitfor.me has a recording. I'm not sure that Blinkist does that, but it's definitely very similar to that. Thanks for watching live. So hopefully we can get those people back there watching live. I apologize again. So now we're going to dive in. Janine, I know you were starting to talk about the book. So if you could just go back like 2 seconds back to where we were and let's start talking about the book.
Yeah, I was just rolling into, we're going to go through these principles really quick. Just what they are and then what applying it could look like. So the first one, the extreme ownership itself, is taking ownership of your role, anything that impacts your mission and your people. And I was just talking about how we speak in terms of our clients, and they're important to us, and their businesses are ours because they are our clients, and we take ownership of the effect that we have in what we do for them as we're serving them.
Yes.
So that's where I was.
Okay. Sorry. Well, let's continue talking about that then. I do think that that's a really important thing to understand, and it's at every level of the org chart or organizational chart, and what we talk about a lot of times, and what we help set up in people's businesses. But it's at every level. It's not just the owner taking ownership of everything that they own. It's everyone down to the person with the lowest paying position at the business. It's ownership of everything, because if everyone's taking ownership of all of their tasks and their responsibilities, then things will be taken care of. There'll be less things that fall through the cracks, and there's less things that that no one has spoken for. If there's ownership, there's someone taking responsibility. If something goes wrong, someone says, that's my fault. This is where I need to step in and find a solution for it. Right. So there's no things, tasks or problems or issues just floating out, not being accounted for, because that's what extreme ownership is. It's being accountable and holding yourself accountable, but also holding everyone else around you accountable up and down the chain of command.
Yep. And you can see that in how you speak about things. Like one of my pet peeves, there is no they, right?
Right.
There's someone with a name who's responsible for that,
or
whether
the
they
we
took ownership of it or not. Yeah, or the we. Yeah.
I think we should do this. Like, that's one of my biggest, or they're going to do this, or we should do this. Like, okay, I need a person's name, or then if it's me, that's fine. I'm fine with that. But if we say we, no one's doing it and no one's taking responsibility for it. So it's not going to get done. Let's just be honest, right?
It's a real psychological thing. It's dispersion of responsibility in a crowd, where people will actually, in a crowd, watch someone get mugged and nobody calls the police because everyone just assumes someone else is doing it. It's just part of our nature. Okay, so the next principle, there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. So I think that's really interesting in terms of corporate culture. What you do sets the tone. So if you're not taking responsibility, or you're not taking ownership, and you're blaming other things that aren't the right things, you'll find your team does the same thing.
Right. Ultimately, you're setting the mood. You're setting, from day to day, setting the mood, right? That you set it. If you're in a bad mood and you come in with a shitty attitude, what do you think everyone else is going to do? They're going to be like, well, why? Why do he or she say that like that? And it's from day to day to setting the tone of what the year is going to look like, the month, the week, each of those things. It starts there. When they say that, that ultimately the shit rolls downhill, they mean that. It really does. And not just the tasks and the responsibilities, but just the overall tone of everything. It's how you deal with it, how you talk to people. If you talk to your C-level executives a certain way, how do you think they're going to probably turn around and talk to the people that they're managing, right? In a very similar fashion, because they believe that that's what you expect to see from them, you know?
Mm-hmm. They are definitely going to follow your lead and react to what you bring.
Right.
All right. So principle number 3 is you have to believe if you want to win. You have to, as a leader. You're the one who's setting the vision. If you don't believe in it, everyone else is going to pick up on that. Yeah, no one is. It's like, what, 70% of communication is nonverbal. So it's so much more than just what you say, but as you were saying, Amelie, what you bring when you show up for your team.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to blow smoke up their asses, like, they're going to know. People are going to know. If they know, like, that you're not really buying into the mission or the plan or, you know, anything like that, they're going to see through that, you know, like, you know, people will sense that and think, well, what, I mean, if he or she isn't believing, why do I need to, you know?
Well, not only that, but how many truly successful businesses with any kind of longevity were built where the leader didn't believe in it? It's like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Right.
All the way around. Okay, principle number 4, check your ego. Okay, so check your ego. The points around that one, first of all, it gets in your way. And second of all, that it clouds your judgment. And this is really important, as we were talking about, when you learn and apply and assess something, you are so much a part of your business in what you choose to do and how you choose to do it. It's like you have to be able to objectively assess the effect that you're having on it, because that may be where the changes need to be made. And if your ego's in there, you can't.
Right. Absolutely. Nick Fitzgerald is here. He said amen, and he's here live. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick. How's it going?
I was looking to see, there was a part in this chapter, but I guess I didn't underline. I thought I did. Anyway, but yeah, so the ego can cloud the decision making when you need to make decisions for you and your team, or you and your business. If you allow your ego to cloud those decisions, you know, you could be very emotional and allow them to weigh the decision making, when if you are of sound mind and being objective. And not every situation you can be fully objective. Like, I understand that, especially when you own a business, it's very personal, and, you know, and it's part of your life, and it's part of who you are. And a lot of you know, business owners, you sell yourself. I mean, if you're a coach, if you're a one-person show, I mean, you're selling yourself, and so it is very personal. But if you allow your ego to get in the way, it clouds your judgment.
It does for building your team as well. If you're intimidated by people who are better than you, then you are selecting people with inferior skill sets. And the whole point of hiring that person should be to delegate something that's not your zone of genius, or not where your energy and focus should be. So you should want to find the best person, and they should be better than you.
Right. Who's better than you, right? Like, you want someone that's better than you. You shouldn't be intimidated by it. You want to find someone that knows how to do the things you don't know how to do. And that takes some self-evaluation, right? Some internal work to say, like, okay, I'm not good at this. I really need to find someone that is. And that means that they're going to be better at it than me. And if you're not able to admit that, or if you're looking for people that are subpar of where you are, then you're really not setting yourself up for success in building a team.
Yeah, no, you want to find the best person out there and congratulate yourself for that. That's where your ego comes in.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. Principle number 5, cover and move, which is very much a military term, but what they're speaking to is teamwork. How communications are effective. As a leader, if you have a larger team, you really need to be mindful of how your team members are communicating with each other, because those can be hints as to whether or not they're working together, or if there's a problem in your business.
Right.
And so one of the examples they specifically gave was, if the sales team is referring to, I forgot, I'm sorry. if the sales team is referring to another part of the business as where orders go to die, then clearly there's an issue going on, right? If there's a derogatory kind of term or nickname, even if they're laughing or saying it in jest, it's like it can be indicative of something not jiving between the teams, and you want the whole organization to be working smoothly and not at odds with each other, because what would that do is like when friction arises, then their focus goes to what's going on between the people within the organization instead of on what they're supposed to be doing for the organization.
Right. And sometimes in some teams, you can get these kind of silo effects starting to create. And when you have a team of people that are working on different tasks or projects, but then ultimately there are some overlapping places or they're waiting on another piece of it. If you don't have the communication within the team, then and you start to have competition, and you start there are times when competition is appropriate and it's good, but when you're trying to complete a project where team A needs to get something done so team B can get their part done, or whatever, if you don't have that communication and you start to have this competition and like start to blame each other, and you start to have just this internal tiff, then really it's going to affect your ability to be able to fulfill on orders or fulfill on projects or things like that. So you want to have that clear communication, concise, and being able to work on different projects, or the same projects, just different tasks within the project, and be able to communicate across teams versus having these sort of silos created, because there just isn't, especially when you're working on something that's a project that goes across all of your teams, or maybe two of your teams or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And much as we love operations and systems and processes, and that's what we do, it's like those are relatively, well, we love them. So we like getting doing the troubleshooting and getting them set up. But fundamentally, the reason why you can't just set it up and let it go is because of people, because of the human factor. And that's where most of your attention needs to go once you have the right system in place.
Yeah.
Because that's where it breaks down, is in those interpersonal interactions. Okay, so going on, principle 6 of 8, so we're almost there, is keep things simple. The team needs to understand the plan. So keeping things simple. It also means using small words. You don't need to use big ones when small ones work, and be super clear as setting the vision, whether it's the vision for the company or for a specific project. It's like the end goal needs to be known. The intent needs to be known. So everyone on the team knows why they're doing the thing that they're doing.
Right. And understand where they fit in the big picture too. If you just have them kind of focused on here, then they don't necessarily know what's going on in the periphery. And so it's important for them to understand that too, is just where do they fit into the big picture. And if you get buy-in from every level of the org chart, from up and down the chain of command, that's better than just having buy-in from the top level, right? Like if you and keeping things simple, here's the plan, here's what we're trying to accomplish, then everyone can get on the same page and everyone can be moving in the same direction at the same time to achieve that goal.
Yeah, that's a really important point of seeing where they fit into it, because sometimes with larger projects, what is more efficient for moving the project forward, there may be little pockets of inefficiency for individuals on the team. And if they understand why that is and where they fit in, then they don't get frustrated about it. It's like, okay, that's the way it is, and it's okay that you see a better way in your corner to do things.
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, so moving along, principle number 7, leaders need to prioritize and execute. So you have this vision, but it's you're the one who has to decide what the highest priority problem is that needs to be solved next or addressed. You're the one who needs to tell your team what you're focusing on in clear, simple terms. You're the one who needs to manage the creation of the solution. You don't have to be the one. This is that ego thing again, right? It's good for you to look to get input from both up and down the organization, depending on where you fit in it. And with that, make a decision on the solution is, because those frontline people, it's like they often have answers because they're on the front line and they see what's going on. People further up in the chain also tend to have way more experience. They may have seen it before in a different context or have something that may be relevant to the problem that's going on. So it works both ways.
They could be jaded because they've been in the game for so long or been in the business so long, and they need someone that's brand new to get a new perspective on things. So even if it's not your idea, it's being able to set the ego aside, hear what people are saying. And if it's a good idea, it's a good idea, regardless of who it came from. But then once the idea has been heard and decided on, then it's the leader's job to put it into a plan. This is where we're going. We were going this way, but now we're going to go this way. And it's, it's your job as the leader to then change the course and explain to the team and why the course is being changed and what direction you're going now, regardless of where the idea came from.
Yep. So especially for smaller, more dynamic teams where they have kind of some steady state functions and then some more dynamic day-to-day where they're responding to a trending thing that needs to be addressed. They need to know which is a priority because they can only do one thing at a time. And it's important to set your own expectations for your team members along those lines as well. Okay, so principle 8, the last one, decentralized command. And we're very familiar with this in the military because we need, people get removed from action and the unit still needs to be able to function and accomplish the mission. So it can't be top heavy, totally dictated in one point, or that single point of failure leads to just that complete failure of the entire mission. So in civilian business terms, this means you're empowering your frontline employees to make decisions. If they know what your intent is, you've given them the tools that they need to do it. They know the resources, they know the parameters within which they're able to make decisions. You're not saying they can make every decision for everything about the company, but within their corner, what can they do? And there's actually an example of this. I'm reaching way back. I haven't read the 4-hour work week in a long time, but I believe Tim Ferriss was speaking to his supplement company, where what a difference it made for him when he allowed his customer service people to make decisions on refunds or exchanges up to a certain smaller dollar amount instead of, they weren't allowed to make any at all. And it helped, and they enjoyed their jobs more. The customers were happier because things happened faster, and he didn't have so many calls that he had to constantly review from his customer service team. So,
and I think it's important to note that those guidelines need to be printed. They need to be somewhere where people can read in black and white what those guidelines look like. You can't just say some sort of guideline, okay, you can do refunds up to $1,000. Like, it needs to be printed somewhere, and they need to understand what the guidelines are and where they can make decisions, and then empower them to do that. On I think it was like our first or second episode of our podcast on Systematic Excellence podcast, we talked about delegation versus tasking. And this is a huge thing with that. This is like the main thing that determines if you're delegating or if you're tasking someone. Delegation is giving them the responsibility and giving them the okay to make decisions, right? Like that's part of this. And if you don't give them the responsibility, they're going to continue to come back to you. And then you can also manage another group of people over on the other side of the business because you're still trying to answer questions from this team, right? Like they need to be able to do what they know how to do and what they're given guidelines to do. So that way you, as the business owner, can worry about other things. I mean, it's exactly what we talked about with that. I do want to make one note. So in this idea of decentralized command, one of the things that it talks about is what we call a span of control, and that each person is capable of having a span of anywhere from 6 to 10 people of managing them. I think 10's actually quite a lot. I think it's usually about 6 to 8. I know it's something that we deal with and manage in the military, and making sure that people only have so many people under their command, and before there is another leader or sub leader or something like that, below them, and that, okay, so you're in charge of these 4 people, you're in charge of these 4 people, but then I'm in charge of these 2 people, right? So keeping that span of control between 6 and 8. It does, in the book it says 6 to 10, but I think 10 is actually quite a lot to have the control over. And so when you think about that in your business, as your team starts to get bigger, you need to start building out those brackets, right? Those extra brackets on the organizational chart. That's something that we help clients with. But right, so you as the business owner start to formulate C-level executives. So maybe you have 4 of those. Then the C-level executives are going to have some middle managers. And then those managers are going to have some other people, some leaders or whatever you call them, or section leaders or something like that. And you have to remember that one person can't be responsible to manage 100 people. It's just not possible, right? And I mean, that's when things get out of control, when then you have people making decisions about things that you don't understand what they're doing, or, they're not following the guidelines, and there's just no way to keep control of that. And that's something really important to think about as you start to build out teams, especially when you're going from, let's say you start out with 4, next thing you know, you have 20. Well, that's, that you're going to need to start having some people that are in charge of other people, managers, and some levels in place.
Yeah, and I think you made an important point there, where as you're describing the chart, working down to your C-level and your management, and keeping those numbers small of how many is important. But businesses, as they evolve, it's like they're actually working from the other way up. And so as your team is growing, as you were saying, it's like you should be actively looking for breaking apart those units and bringing in that or putting that person, again, naming names, who exactly, you're in charge of.
And who has leadership, potential, or who do you need to hire? Maybe the team isn't ready for leadership. Maybe you need to hire someone that has experience in leadership or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really common problem that comes up, right? Is taking that person that's best at a particular skill set and then throwing them into a management position, and they really don't have that there. So they're put in a position of failure because they haven't been trained into that, and at the same time, that is taking all their focus and time away from that thing that they were doing really well at. So it becomes a double problem. All right. Okay, so those are the 8 principles. Extreme ownership. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. You have to believe if you want to win. Check your ego. Cover and move, which is teamwork. Keep things simple. Leaders need to prioritize and execute, and the concept of decentralized command. So this is a book. We highly recommend it. Just before we go, I just want to, Amelie, I know you have a lot to say about this as far as applying things. When you read a book, it's like there's how you are applying things for personal development, and then there's when you're applying things to your business. How do we prefer to go about that in terms of planning for the business and not whiplashing the team with the next great idea?
Yeah. So one of the things that we recommend is, if you have an idea that is going to change the course that you're on, or you realize you need to reassess the end result, then you can, once you have a plan, then bring the team in and then readjust. But if it's something that you can wait until your quarterly planning or your monthly planning, then do that. Because if you have the team going in this direction, then all of a sudden you change them and now you're going in this direction. I know I just got out of my camera so you can't see. If you're going this direction and then all of a sudden you change to go in this direction, the team's going to feel like they just went through a whirlwind, and they're not going to really be able to buy into where you're going, because they're just going to be kind of anticipating like, oh God, like what's next? Where are we going? What's going on? So I would determine whether the change can wait till a month, your monthly meeting, your quarterly meeting, those kinds of things, or if it's something that needs to happen now. But I would also make sure that you have the plan in mind first, get that worked out on paper or wherever you need to get that worked out, and then present it to the team. So that way you're managers and your team members can one, see what the plan is, see what the end goal is, and then start to formulate what their part in it is. If you just come to them with an idea without it really worked out or formulated, then you just have a bunch of people that are not sure where to go. And so that's really not productive. So it just depends on what that new thing is, what you find. So, if it's a matter of extreme ownership and teaching people how to take responsibility for their roles or something like that, that might be a meeting that you have during your monthly team huddle or something, or maybe it's something you do at your daily meeting with your team, but something like that can be presented to them, and maybe you have them read the book or something like that. If it's a change in the project or the end result, then that's something that you need to find the time to formulate first, then present to the team, because once the project is delegated, there's going to be lots of changes in tasks and focuses and things like that. So it just depends on what that looks like.
Yep. And part of, just to add in there, as far as being clear with that goal, it's like, and metrics and analysis, it's like, it needs to be clear what exactly, what is that goal in terms of, is it hits to your website? Is it units shipped? It's a number with a name that you're watching, that's super simple, that the whole team understands, so they know what you're watching. And if you're shifting the plan, why you're doing it, they have an eye on that bigger picture with you, and it's not just chaotic changes rolling from above. Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we have enjoyed this. This is a great book. We both have read it. I know I've been through it twice. Janine, I think you've read it more than once. I really kind of like the book discussion. I have a feeling a lot of people are reading right now while they're at home. So maybe we'll grab another book and discuss that next week. If you've read the book, we would love to hear your comments about it, your thoughts about it, questions. If you have a book that you love, that you think that, we might like, please provide that recommendation. We both love to read. So we'd love to hear those. So we appreciate you guys joining live. I saw Chris was here, Sajid, Nick, thank you guys so much. If you catch the replay, give us a hashtag replay. We'll be back here next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we look forward to seeing you then. All right, bye.
Bye.